The start of this year's Hansa Umkomaas Canoe Marathon was shrouded in controversy. Controversial as the organizers, Kingfisher Canoe Club, had to make a number of decisions following the 1987 floods. The start had to be moved downstream to Josephine Bridge, and the overnight stop to the Umkomaas Rapid because of flood damage to roads in the area. This would make the first day particularly long, approximately 80 kilometers, and the second day a somewhat shorter 40 kilometers. To quote one of the long-standing paddlers, "There is a hidden spot a few hundred meters from the Josephine Bridge, a shallow depression in the African bush where beetles and birds are companions, and the roar of the river is softened to the muted whoosh by the curtain of thorn trees. There I am wont to wander before the start of the marathon and enjoy a moment's peace from the tension before the race. Last year, as the river rose, I was tempted to stay there, undiscovered. No one would miss a lone canoeist in the bobbing, orange-coated throng that slipped gingerly into the seething Umkomaas. I could always say I fell asleep, lulled by the insect's drone in my shady spot, and missed the start." Oscar Chalupsky and Lee McGregor make their way through the first rapid to gain an early lead in the race. Chalupsky and McGregor, followed by Springbok Sean Rice, paddling with Colin Simpkins, the winner of the 1986 Hansa Marathon. In third position is Springbok Mark Perrow, accompanied by Neil Evans, strong contenders from the Transvaal. Richard Black and George Green, Kingfisher Canoe Club paddlers, up with the leaders. Tim Cornish, British and South African canoeist, paddling with current Springbok captain Creling Viljoen. Next to them, two doctors, Richard Jones and Graham Monteith. Interesting to note that most paddlers are using high-volume boats because of the medium to full river conditions, which, in effect, have chased away many novices and less competent paddlers who have decided not to start the race as the river has been running near to flood levels in the last week. One of the problems confronting canoeists in this type of water is whether to paddle through the middle of a rapid and risk being engulfed by large waves and holes created by the swirling water, or to attempt to skirt the edge of the rapid and risk the chance of being spun out. The difference between paddling in a river and paddling in the surf is that the waves in the river are stationary while the river moves, whereas in the sea, the water is still and the waves move. Consequently, the paddler has to choose the best possible line through a rapid in order to avoid being held back in his tracks and stalling his craft, thereby losing control. The paddlers have given various rapids names, and Sean Rice and Colin Simpkins negotiate the Old Buck Rapid. Oscar Chalupsky and Lee McGregor are still pulling strongly at this stage, powering their way through the fast-flowing roller coaster waters. Perrow and Evans are less used to fast-flowing, rapidly moving water, but cope admirably. Bruce Wenker and Les Key, followed by the old warhorse Tony Scott, 6 times winner of this marathon, partnered this time by Malcolm Hall. Powering their way down this rapid are Mark Jamison and John Edmonds, previous winner of the Hansa Doozy Canoe Marathon. Tim Cornish and Creling Viljoen looking tired and very wet at this stage, but still pulling strongly. These two paddlers won the Devises to Westminster race in 1986, real powerhouse paddlers who'd be much happier on flat water. Richard Whitton, a boat manufacturer from Durban, and Peter Zietsman, a quantity surveyor. It's surprising to note how many professional people are attracted to this highly challenging, adventurous sport. Kevin White, showing John Lee from Cape Town the way down the Umkomaas, also up with the front runners. The less experienced paddlers show the true character of the river. Leading the singles challenge is seasoned campaigner Mike Tocknell. The view from the helicopter clearly illustrates how the craft are tossed aside by the raging river. The leading crew, Oscar Chalupsky and Lee McGregor, plows through yet another rapid. Sean Rice and Colin Simpkins and Tony Scott and Malcolm Hall are on their tail as they wind their way through the rapids to Umkomaas, feeling the effects of 3.5 hours of fighting waves and holes in a desperate struggle to keep their craft upright and in a straight line. The beauty of the Umkomaas Valley is lost on these paddlers. They entered the race to win, and that's all they want to do. Another trip at another time will undoubtedly be organized to appreciate the beauty. Mark Jamieson and John Edmonds not out of contention at this stage. The Transvaal crew of Mark Perrow and Neil Evans skirt the waves in a bid to make up a little time. The two doctors, Graham Monteith and Richard Jones, land themselves in a hole and a great deal of trouble. The Umkomaas has claimed yet another victim. Graham searches desperately for his paddle, without which it would be a long walk to the overnight stop. Survival in a rapid depends on keeping control of one's craft and equipment. Nico Fillion, accompanied by the well-known Ironman exponent, Eddie King. Race leaders Oscar and Lee wind their weary way down to the overnight stop, which has been moved a further 12 kilometers below the planned overnight stop, as the weather conditions prevented the organizers from getting to their proposed destination. At one stage, it was even suggested that the race become a one-day affair, as the organizers were only able to get into this inaccessible valley at the 11th hour. The overnight stop and a well-earned rest for blistered hands, water-blasted eyes, and aching rumps. Exhausted legs refuse to carry their weight as they struggle out of their boat. Oscar Chalupsky reflects on the day.
Oh, it's unbelievably hard. I've never been so stuffed in all my life. I mean, jeez. I mean, paddling for 4 hours, the waves are just hitting you all the time. And it's like constant, and you're trying to avoid it. Eventually, at the end, I mean, we were just balancing. I mean, everywhere was finished. We weren't even going anywhere. It was really tough.
The river itself?
It was lovely while we could enjoy it for about 2.5 hours, and then afterwards it just became a pain, and we were just hoping there wouldn't be any more water. I mean, it was really hard. Gee, blisters. Never been like it.
How do you think the middle fielders are going to fare?
Well, if they stop and have lunch and everything, it'll be all right, but us guys that pressed on the whole way, our bums, I mean, it's terrible. We nearly paddled for 4 hours, and we've done nearly 80 Ks, which is a mammoth paddle, eh? I mean, that is far, anybody's standards.
Tony Scott, a veteran of the Umkomaas, gives us his view.
It wasn't so much a race as a procession and a survival situation. More tiring than actual paddling. The effort in paddling was just keeping the boat upright and getting your lines correct, because a mistake costs you about 5 lengths every time. So that's what was the most tiring aspect of it. The whole front bunch seemed to go at a reasonable pace for the first 3.5 hours. The last half an hour, everybody died completely. They underestimated the effect of the bigger water.
This is a time for the warriors of the wild water to lie their weary bodies down, brag about their achievements, fill their stomachs with ample food provided by the Hillcrest Scouts, doctor blisters and boats, and enjoy a cold beer or 3. This is also the time when the camaraderie of the race comes to the fore and store is flowed.
Don't do this to him, Shame, he's having a problem.
I've always had a problem. You can almost get to the main drop and just take over.
Later that night, a deluge turns the overnight stop into a quagmire. And before the paddlers take to the river the next morning, they cheerfully help the vehicles out of the mud. The organization for such an event is a mammoth task, and in this case it was executed extremely well, given the weather conditions. The campsite was placed close to the road, which forced the canoeists to carry their craft 500 meters from the water. This meant a long, hard slog down to the water in the morning. But those with legal tender in their pockets were able to enlist the help of locals, who see this as a red-letter day in this somewhat sparsely populated green valley of Natal. The Umkomaas is one of the few unspoiled rivers in Natal. There is no dam on it, and canoeists and conservationists hope it will stay this way. The second day sees a reverse order start, with the slower paddlers setting out at 8:30 a.m. and the elapsed time paddlers starting in their times from 9 a.m. to 9:30 a.m., followed by the faster batch of paddlers leaving at 9:45 a.m. The reason for this is an attempt to get most paddlers finishing within an hour of each other. The first group gets their brains to send a weary message to their arms in an attempt to get into the swing of things. This relatively calm water will soon spill over into a boiling mass, waking up those who are still brushing the mud out of their weary eyes from the previous day. An excellent example of how not to do it, as the first rapid known as the Bad Rapid wreaks havoc. In canoeing terms, these are the fish and chippers, the also-rans, whose main aim is to finish the race. The leaders from the previous day wait anxiously to get started, with a lead of 1 minute and 40 seconds on Sean Rice and Colin Simpkins. Oscar's partner, Lee McGregor, is a double springbok in surf lifesaving and swimming, and Oscar has South African colours for canoeing and surf lifesaving. Sean and Colin power their way into the second day with the thoughts of Bad Rapid, Whirlpool, Gully, and No Name firmly implanted in their mind's eye. Scott and Hall lying in contention for a win this day. Pero and Evans choose to start on the other side of the river.
10 seconds.
Part of the very small singles field battle their way through Bad Rapid, a rapid which has changed dramatically since the September 1987 floods in the town. An extremely cautious paddler has opted for a plastic or Tupperware boat, which is a sluggish craft normally used for tripping and not for racing. However, with the water at the height it is this year, a number of paddlers decided in favor of these indestructible craft. It takes perfect timing and unison of movement with your partner to survive the rapidly moving water. The river at this level is actually extremely forgiving, as boats get washed over the rocks, whereas in lower rivers, craft get wrapped around rocks. A mushroom of mist heralds the Kingfisher Falls, which for most paddlers is a self-inflicted compulsory portage. The leaders approach this obstacle and make a dramatic mistake, which could cost them the race. They know how important those seconds were that they threw away as they emptied the water from their boat and make their way to the bottom of the waterfall. In the meantime, Sean and Colin have seen what happened and take full advantage. One paddler has in fact been swept over these falls before today, sustaining a broken toe. However, this mean drop is only recommended for kamikaze pilots. Tony Scott and Malcolm Hall successfully negotiate a minor channel on the left of the waterfall, causing minor damage to their craft, and are hard on the rudder of the leading two boats. There are now 4 boats in the race for first position, which has forced all the crews to shoot the whirlpool rapid. The experience of the leading crews make this look like a Sunday school picnic. The strong Mark Perrow is our newest canoeing springbok, having gained his colours in 1987. Down the middle, the way Jamison and Edmonds like it. Most of the backmarkers and the middle order paddlers portage around this obstacle. Some paddlers are less fortunate. Even the race leaders were not without their share of problems.
Well, started off at the waterfall, we fell out, then we got going again, and then just after gully, we fell out, and then you know when you're out of your boat, it's full of water and it just picks up the rocks on the bottom, and that's just broke our boat and broke my paddle. So then we got another paddle, tried to do a bit of a repair job, but it's still completely buggered.
You must be a little bit disappointed about this.
Every time I seem to get in a canoe race, I seem to have bad luck. Yeah, no, it was just unlucky. It was one of those things. We were lucky yesterday. We had a good day yesterday. It just didn't come right today.
Good enough's weir, the last major obstacle which can prove the winning or losing of this race. The problem is to identify the chute from the top in this level of water. The crew that successfully shoots this weir is more than likely to win the race. However, the possibility of breaking the boat is as high as 50%. Sean Rice finds his way through, and now it's a flat-out run for the finish. Perro and Evans opt for the safe route, but realize their chances are slim, having watched Rice and Simpkins paddle downstream. Scott and Hall follow Rice's example and shoot the weir. The disappointment of Mark Perro is plain to see as he edges the boat off the riverbank. The smell of success is sweet as Sean Rice and Colin Simpkins approach the finish. Mark Perro and Neil Evans have paddled their hearts out to overtake Scott and Hall, and only 50 meters separate them from Rice and Simpkins when disaster strikes, and they hit a sandbank. They still manage to finish in second spot. Coming home in a very creditable third position, a very tired Tony Scott and Malcolm Hall glide into the riverbank to the cheers of the spectators and seconds. But the day and the race belongs to Sean Rice and Colin Simpkins.
Oh, we had an excellent day today. We didn't make any mistakes. Everyone else seemed to make mistakes or have to take bad lines, and we were lucky. Mark and Neil gave us a good chase, and they got caught in a sandbank just up about 100 yards up from the finish, so we were fairly lucky too.
If there had been a sprint at the end, would you have had enough in reserve?
Yeah, we had about 50 yards in them, so I'm pretty sure we would have made it, but it would have been tight.
Confident words from a worthy Hansa Umkomaas champion, who came home in 5 hours, 46 minutes and 14 seconds, followed by Mark Perro and Neil Evans, 1 minute and 21 seconds behind, and veteran campaigner Tony Scott, partnered by Malcolm Hall, third, in a time of 5 hours, 48 minutes and 30 seconds. The singles victory went to Mike Tocknell, who took 6 hours, 16 minutes and 55 seconds to complete the grueling 120 kilometers.